You a peek. Suchanga did not waste time and quickly fled towards the hut. The immortal blood has already been obtained, presumably this thing can be used as a condition for mercy to open the cave heaven. Thinking so, he quickly returned to the cabin. Pushing open the door, Su Lianyue was waiting in a low voice. Seeing Suchanga returning, her eyes suddenly shone, as if spring was coming. Mercy, this is the opportunity one found for you, take it and absorb it. Suchanga took out the immortal blood and handed it to her. Buzz. As soon as the immortal blood appeared, in an instant, the vast vicissitudes of the breath reappeared, and the space seemed to be affected by a star-like force, cracking inches, like a mirror shattered, revealing a pitch-black background. This is. Although Su Lianyue was a mortal cultivator, she had never seen what a cultivator used before, but when she saw the scene in front of her, especially when she sensed the terrifying and boundless aura, she immediately understood. A little. This thing must be the supreme treasure. Gong. Gongzi, you are so good to Lianer. Lianer really doesn't know how to repay you. A wave of emotion arose in her heart, her nose couldn't help but sour, tears involuntarily flowed out of her eyes, choking tears. Mercy doesn't cry, it's not good to look good when you cry, take it and absorb it. Suchanga held up her white little hand and generously put the immortal blood in the palm of her hand. Su Xianyue suddenly felt that her palms were extremely warm, and purple and blue thunder and lightning suddenly flowed from the surface of the immortal blood, crackling, and the huge energy contained in it seemed to be about to be released. Gongzi, I will be in the future. I will definitely repay you well, Su. Xianyue's heart surged, and her heart jumped in her body, deeply moved. Gongzi first rescued her from the Huang family, and then led her to step into the door of cultivation, transform into the mundane, become a cultivator, and now give her the conditions to open the cave heaven. This kindness, like the grace of recreation, is as heavy as a mountain. But she was poor and white, did not have anything to get her hands on, and could not repay it, which made her very inferior and embarrassed, and she could only use good words. But what's the difference between this and a bad promise? Woohoo, I hope Gongzi doesn't dislike himself. In a trance, Suchanga touched her little head and said, don't think so much, absorb it first, and talk about the repayment later. Su. Lianyue's heart was warm, wiped away her tears, and swallowed this drop of immortal blood. Buzz. Immortal blood entered her body, and for a moment she felt as if she had opened a new world, in a vast world, with a steady stream of pure power gathered and drilled into the pores of her body. A hot gas, like a sun particle, is vast, shining all over the world, churning and transforming in the body, like scorching magma, using the meridians as a medium, spreading to all over the body, and instilling into the limbs and bones. Buzz. Her body suddenly burst out with golden divine light, her spine straightened sharply, like a dragon propped up, emitting golden brilliance, and her skin was as dazzling as the golden sun in the sky. It was at this very moment. The hole in the body has been opened. Immortal blood installation, push the cave sky rolling, drive the breath rolling. The first cave sky. The second cave. The third cave. The fourth cave sky. The fifth cave sky. The sixth cave. The seventh cave. The eighth cave. The ninth cave sky. The 10th cave. The horror of the reincarnation of the saint was vividly exerted at this moment, and the terrifying talent, root bone, and qualification were fully reflected at this moment, and it only took a few breaths of time, and the cave In the body brazenly surpassed the legendary level. Suchonga's eyelids jumped. Directly open up 10 caves? Do you want to be so scary? And the next moment. Buzz. Buzz. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. Buzz. The cave sky continues to open up, there is no meaning to stop. The 11th cave heaven. The 12th cave. The 13th cave heaven. The 14th cave. The 16th cave heaven. The 17th cave. The 18th cave heaven. The 19th cave. The 21st cave heaven. The 22nd cave heaven. Buzz. 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 The surging hum is like the magnificent sea. In just a few breaths, the cave heaven in Su Lianyue's body blatantly opened. Up to 22, on par with Suchonga. And this? It's just a drop of immortal blood. You must know that Suchonga absorbed the great Regine Winaden, produced by the system. It must be a fine product, and it is more advanced than immortal blood. But Su Lianyue only absorbed a drop of immortal blood, but with the blessing of terrifying talent, the gap was almost impossible. This Nima, it can only be said that the Saint Root bone is too terrifying. It is equivalent to Su Lianyue originally having 22 cave heavens, but it lacks an introduction. And now, the immortal blood used as an introduction, opening up her root bone and activating the terrifying Saint Root. The corners of Suchonga's mouth twitched slightly. Thighs, firm thighs. Fortunately, he cut off the opportunity of Sikong Tu in the first place. Otherwise, where would he find such a thigh? At this moment, he suddenly discovered something. 22 caves have been opened, why is there no aura around? There is simply no such magnificent momentum as he was at that time. What's going on? At this moment, he suddenly found that not only did Lianer not have the magnificent momentum of opening up the cave sky, but there was not even any fluctuation. She closed her eyes, her breath was restrained, vast and deep, as if she had not cultivated. Suchonga's eyes condensed slightly. He knew that the more this happened, the more terrifying it became. In previous lives, it was written like this in those novels. Buzz. For a long time, Su Lianyue slowly opened her eyes. This eye was so brilliant. Releasing brilliant star-like colorful colors, although it did not deliberately release coercion, but it was brilliant, and the space automatically distorted and collapsed downward. After opening her eyes, she glanced at Suchonga and said, Gongzi, I understand. Huh? Suchonga's heart moved. Could it be that the memory has awakened? Su Lianyue's eyes flashed with golden brilliance. Flick your sleeves. In an instant, the hut was shining with light, and the endless rules and orders of the Tao rhyme were one after another, suspended in the hut like shooting stars, but leaving a rich Tao rhyme. All kinds of rules and orders were like an avenue surrounding, rich and entwined, spewing clouds and mist, and the wind and fog. Su Lianyue was as gorgeous as a martial god, standing in the hut, her eyes closed slightly, and then opened, falling down the magnificent and rich rhyme of the sky, gorgeous, like the sun and the moon, rushing through the sea. Gongzi, thank you. She took Suchonga's hand, and the white jade hand hugged this palm tightly. The corners of her lips squirmed, and said softly, it turns out that I am a saint. P.S. 20 readers who randomly selected gifts to give big guys thanks. Thanks, I got drunk again that night, ignorant shower, reincarnation, square root. Emperor, Songnam, you, kid, don't run and hit you, do father who loves. Lotus root fish cake, gu lianshu, Baishan's fat treasure, bear king who Loves potatoes, Zion Human Jingxian, optimism, facing life, Wang Zhao, who loves steamed blue grouper, 3 Daolu, sweet knife, song by of the Ionian Islands, cocoon of White Emperor City, Frost of Vancouver Island, Azure God, Ling Xiao, Tianji Pavilion Master. Tomorrow too. Communicate. Thank you for the gift, thank you. The humble author really appreciates. Thank you. Pure hand fighting, sincere thanks. Feeling the delicate and soft touch of her jade hands, Suchanga asked, have you awakened your memory? Su Xianyue's golden eyes gradually changed, and after a little, it recovered. As before. Memories flood into your head. Past lives. In this life. Suddenly, she hugged Suchanga's hand several times, hugged it tightly, and said softly, Gongzi, thank you, if it weren't for you, I would be inferior to pigs and dogs in this life, and I will be in a mess for the rest of my life. Suchanga smiled lightly, why should you and I be so polite? No, Gongzi, Mercier will remember your kindness to me for the rest of my life. I am willing to serve as a maid for Gongzi and follow Gongzi all my life. Su Xianyue looked at him gratefully, tears slipping silently in her eyes. In this life, she was bullied and humiliated, living a life inferior to pigs and dogs, but it was Gongzi who saved her, brought her back, found opportunities, and awakened memories. If it weren't for him, he would probably remain unknown for the rest of his life, eventually turning into dry bones, and never returning to the saint. As a person in 2 lifetimes, Su Lianyue has seen through a lot, and knows rarity even more. Seeing this, Suchanga just smiled and said, of course, you can follow me. But although you have awakened your memory, your cultivation has not returned to the saint. Cultivate well, strive to catch up with my steps, and when the competition is over, you and I will sweep the whole sect together. Obey Gongzi's orders. Su Xianyue nodded. Don't be so restrained, you are not a slave in my eyes, but a companion. Su Xianyue's heart suddenly crossed a warm current again, and one couldn't help it, tears burst out. Child, I know. After calming Lianer's emotions, Suchanga pushed the door and went out. Su Lianyue awakened the memory and needed a while to digest, and Suchanga knew that she needed to be quiet alone. It was at this time that the system's subsidy arrived. Ding! You sent a drop of immortal blood, and the tens of billions of subsidies took effect, triggering an excess critical attack. This excess critical attack multiplier, 509,000 times. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Emperor Luo blood. Huh. Suchanga's heart moved. Emperor fall? Eyelidding? This tall word combined together seems to be a transcendent treasure. The system sounds. Emperor drop blood, in ancient times, the blood of the great emperor, the life of the great emperor, amazing in era, but the strong also have the end of the day, when sitting down, he used all his strength to keep the purest drop of blood on his body. Hundreds of millions of years later, this blood still remains alive, full and fresh, like the blood of a living person. Absorbing this blood, you can open up the possibility of becoming an emperor and advance all the way. Hiss. Suchanga couldn't help but take a slight breath. Open Emperor Chung, possibly? According to the information he obtained through 5 years, no matter how genius and strong everyone is, there is always an upper limit. That upper limit is his apex. The Void God realm is an example. Some people's talent roots could only support him to cultivate to the Void God realm, and then he couldn't move forward. The same goes for saints. Many powerful people practiced all their lives until their beards and hair were all gray, and they could not preach saints. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. As for the great, that's even harder, it's a big wave. The cultivators of the Tsangyuan realm do not know how many ordinary people. But those who can preach the great emperor, even if they obtain the slightest possibility of becoming an emperor, it is difficult to ascend to the sky. But now, as long as you absorb this blood, you can immediately open the possibility of becoming an emperor, and you will be surging forward from then on. In other words, transform into the posture of the emperor. Awesome. For a time, Suchonga's heart was excited and proud. He didn't waste time and immediately went to the water curtain cave to absorb this drop of emperor blood. Along a road, he soon arrived at the door of the water curtain cave. Just when I arrived here, I suddenly ran into a few acquaintances. Yo, look, that little transparent actually came to the water curtain cave? Lying groove, it's really a rare thing. What is he here for? You can't cultivate, is it to waste the cultivation room? It's Hu Han and Huang Jiulong. Next to him stood Wang Wei, Zhang Zongbao, and Xikong Tuesday. Suchonga glanced at them, and his pupils suddenly chilled. These people have all had friction with themselves, and now they can be said to be together. Don't laugh at junior brother Su, he also wants to strive for progress, can't you give him some opportunities? Suddenly, a figure crossed in the distance, it was Chu Shui. Huang Jiulong sneered, this is a world of personal cannibalism, a weak chicken like him, still cultivate? If you don't want to die, go home and raise pigs early. Hu Han and Yang said strangely, ouch, can't you go back, we still made an appointment with him to fight, you stimulate him so much, in case he can't think of any tendons, what can he do if he really goes back to raising pigs? What senior brother who said is, but a weak chicken like him, I really recommend going home quickly, the province lost his life in the tournament. Huang Jiulong sneered. Zhang Zongbao and Xikong, too, showed a sneer one after another, looking at the excitement is not too big. Weak chickens also want to compete for the throne of the Holy Sun? It's whimsical. Chu Shui clenched her pink fist, so angry that she couldn't speak. Suchonga sneered, and just about to speak, Wang Wei suddenly said, little transparent, what are you sneering at? Don't you want to go home? Good. Wait. For the tournament, I'll hit you until you cry. Hu Han glanced at Suchonga with disdain, and then persuaded Wang Wei. Junior brother Wang, okay, what to do with this kind of little transparent waste of time, it's not worth it, hurry up and cultivate. Wang Wei let out a turbid breath and said, also, what nonsense I have with him. They have been practicing in the cultivation tower for a while today, so they came here to temper their strength. After saying these words, led by Hu Han, the 5 people entered the water curtain cave without looking back, and each chose a cultivation room to cultivate. Suchonga looked at their backs and sneered in his heart. Waiting for the tournament, I don't know who hit who cried. Chu Shui pinched a handful of sweat for him, but didn't say anything more, she was afraid of hitting junior brother Su. Then, she let out a long sigh and entered the water curtain cave to cultivate. After Chu Shui left, many disciples came one after another, and when they passed in front of Suchonga, they all showed an incredulous expression, and then they didn't say anything, and went straight in to cultivate. Suchonga soon entered the water curtain cave. After choosing a cultivation room to sit down, he took out the blood of the emperor and swallowed it in one gulp. Buzz. In an instant, he directly felt a brilliant like the rising sun, the hot Current entered the body, the muscles and bones crackled and exploded in an instant. The sweat hair exploded, the tiger and leopard thunder, and the strong wind around his body roared, spreading in all directions. In an instant, the momentum like a dragon soaring and a tiger burst out, sweeping out, and the breath swept through like a wave, invisibly erupting into terrifying coercion. Di Luo stared at the blood, and at an extremely fast speed, he frantically sublimated his talent root bone. At this moment, Su Changde could clearly feel that there was a burst of heat coming from his root bone, and every root bone was transformed, and under the inner vision, the vertebrae transformed into purple gold color, with magnificence and solemnity, like an emperor bone. Buzz. 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 The terrifying aura invisibly forms oppression, like a big wave of sand. The waves are magnificent, pushing in all directions. In an instant, there was a sound of shock from the other cultivation rooms. This is such a terrifying breath. What's going on? What the hell is going on? Lying groove, it's terrible. Many of the disciples in the cultivation room couldn't sit still, and they all let out ghost exclamations. In their perception, what kind of breath is this, like a vast and boundless river of stars? The waves are magnificent, just being oppressed makes people feel deeply suffocated. Shoo! Suddenly, there was a sound of gasping for air from Sikong Tu's cultivation room. Immediately after, Zhang Zongbao's face also changed, and he was shocked. Shoo! It's terrifying. In an instant, as if opening Pandora's box, Wang Wei, Huang Jiulong, and Hu Han all emitted shock, doubt, and unbelievable gasping sounds. This breath. Oh my goodness! I felt like I was going to be out of breath. My heavenly Lord, do you want to be so terrifying? Hold steady. Quickly stabilize the Tao heart, otherwise the consequences will be unimaginable. The three of them were shocked, and their hearts went up and down, as if they had exploded a pot. That breath made their Tao hearts almost unstable, like a flat boat in the sea, shaking. Wang Wei took a sharp breath of cold air and said in shock, "My mother, which senior brother is this? Wait for the competition conference, don't let me touch him." Hu Han trembled with fright, and said in shock, "Don't let me face him." Hiss. It's horrible. Buzz. Suddenly, another sound sounded, and a momentum like a vast wave swept out of the water curtain hole, and rose up like a dragon to the sky. Straight to the 9 heavens. Ja. Suddenly, there was a thunder explosion in the sky, like a morning bell and a drum, which resounded in the depths of the heavenly dome in an instant. Shoo! Tao! Tao! This is Daoing. Above the heavenly dome, the void fluctuated, and a powerful figure walked out. It was Du Sihai who returned. When he heard the bell ringing and the sound of the Tao trembling, his face changed drastically, gasped, and was shocked. This? Which Tianjiao is this, who can actually trigger the heavenly bell to ring for it, and the sound of the Tao vibrates? Only those who are extremely powerful in qualifications, who have a sense of heaven and earth, will ring the bell of heaven and sound, and ring for it. It is for the sound of the Tao. Tone level. 1-3 epic level. 3-6 legendary level. 6-9 reckless level. Meanwhile, Law Enforcement Temple. Bingyu stared at the void blankly, only feeling deep disbelief. That mighty bell, like a spring thunder, is mighty, spreading throughout the heavenly dome, resounding in all directions, irresistible. Her face changed wildly, she took a deep breath of cold air, and lost her voice in shock, a transcendent Tianjiao was born. And at the same moment, Luofeng Yi Qingyao also heard this sound, and his heart shook, and he hurriedly walked out of the small courtyard and looked up at the sky. I saw that in the sky, a muffled thunder, like a thunderbolt on a sunny day. Thunderbolts resounded, shaking the heavens and the earth, deafening. Heavens! Oh, my God! This is Daoyin. Since the Middle Ages in the Kanglan realm, no cultivator has been strong enough to trigger the heavenly bell Daoyin. Right now, she was shocked. Who is it? It can actually trigger the Daoyin. However, at this time, the firmament shook, the void fluctuated, and several channels sounded. Jia. 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 For consecutive sounds, like rolling thunder, the heavenly bell ringing, the sound of the road trembling. Shu. Within the Tai Xian Dao sect, countless neat gasping sounds sounded violently. My mother, this. Daoyin 5 trembling. This son. It's scary. Who is it? Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. Who is so powerful? Ugh. 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 The void fluctuated, and 9 powerful figures walked out one after another. All of them tumbling with a tsunami-like terrifying momentum, like a glorious sun, deep and vast. It was the peak master of the 9 peaks of the sect. Ice Girl. Du Sihai. Yi Qingyao. And other 6 peak masters. Impressively listed. As the sound of the road was heard, everyone couldn't sit still. At the moment, everyone looked at the depths of the heavenly dome in a daze. Looking at the place where the sound came from, their faces changed wildly. And they were shocked. This son's future achievements. Hiss. Unimaginable. Daoyin 5 trembling. This son is an ancient Tianjiao. What about the sect master? When such a big thing happened, where did the sect master go? Hansa is here. Buzz. The void rippled, and an ancient chariot crossed the void, and Lin Invincible walked out of it. This. Daoyin trembled, this son is terrible. It's scary like never before. I'm too mysterious, this is going to. Unbeatable. Lin. Invincible looked at the depths of the heavenly dome, his heart was shocked. And he was also overjoyed. There were disciples in the sect who triggered the heavenly bell, and the Daoyin trembled for it, which even the founding ancestors do not have their honors. Buzz. At this moment, the void rippled again, and an old figure emerged. His figure seems to be virtual and not virtual, seems to be real and not real. Exists between the 2 phases of virtual and real, and only the sect master can see it. When Lin Invincible saw it, he hurriedly bowed down. Shaolin, I have seen. Taishang. The old figure was none other than Su Lao. He looked into the depths of the heavenly dome, and for the first time, a deep shock appeared on Gujing Wubua's face. There is even more ecstasy of being smashed by the jackpot. This son is really terrible, but it can be the holy son of my Taishan holy land. No. Shaolin, if you abdicate the throne, he will be the next sect master. In front of Lin Invincible, Elder Su said such words, but Lin Invincible did not have the slightest dissatisfaction. The other party's qualifications far exceeded those of the founding ancestor. Not to mention him? Hurriedly said, Shaolin, lead the order. Right now. In the depths of the firmament there was a sudden fluctuation, like a wild dragon stirring the sea, pulling the heavens and the earth, and the mighty momentum swept the sky in an instant. Ja. Dowing 6 trembling. Ja. 7 tremors. Ja. 8 tremors. Ja. 9 tremors. In an instant, the Tai Xian Dao sect was in an uproar. Shoo. 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 Su Lao's old face twitched violently, and he only felt deep disbelief. Phew. This. 9 tremors. Dowing 9 trembling. 9 is the ultimate, this son. You can become an emperor in the future. This. Came out. A large sound of wild gasping suddenly came from the scene. Shoo. 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 Everyone's shocked faces were numb, their expressions were stunned, and they were shocked into a cold sweat. Dowing Jiao trembled, becoming an emperor. In ancient times, the great emperor caused the sound of heaven to sound, and the sound of the Tao trembled. Now, there are descendants who have entered the saint beyond the ordinary. Shoulder to shoulder with the great emperor. Such horror is incomparable. Who is it? Which disciple is it? Su Lao's emotions surged, and it was difficult to calm down. Su Lao's voice just fell. Buzz. In the depths of the firmament, a huge fluctuation was suddenly heard again. And in an instant, the sky roared, the sky was falling, the ground surged with golden lotuses, dragons and phoenixes danced, and the unicorn was auspicious. Once transcendent into the saint, purple chi came 30,000 li east. Ja. Another loud sound like a golden bell drum spread all over the world in an instant. Magnificent momentum, sweeping all things in heaven and earth, sweeping the 8 wastes and 6 combinations. Dowing 10 trembling. Shoo. 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 The huge Taishan Dao sect resounded with gasping air one after another. Lin Invincible couldn't hold back his excitement, but he could hardly suppress the cultivation riot in his body. And Su Lao's pupils widened violently, his face turned pale, and he fell into endless shock. Dao sound 10 trembling, 10 trembling. OMG, this. The 9 trembles of Daoyin are the posture of the great emperor. Then these 10 tremors are. He didn't dare to imagine, he only felt that his heart was beating wildly in his body, and he fell into a deep shock. This son's future is extraordinary. When I am Tu Xian Daozong. Target. Speaking of this, Elder Su had already lost his confidence and didn't know what to say. Daoyin trembled, and the Taishan Dao sect could no longer hold this son. This kind of Tianjiao, future achievements, even he can't estimate. Buzz. At this moment, with the 10 trembling of the Daoyin, the heaven and earth sympathized, giving birth to infinite visions. Thousands of purple chi stretched across hundreds of millions of miles of the firmament, and the Dao light flashed with a vast and brilliant divine radiance. Loud voice, elephant invisible. The endless visions of heaven and earth are varied, colorful, and beautiful. Then, a magnificent breath swept the firmament, intertwined with the vision of heaven and earth, and in an instant there were thousands of visions, like the scattered flowers of the heavenly goddess, and the petals of the golden lotus came from the heavenly dome and fell into the earth below. Suddenly, the host domain shook. Countless lords of forces, large and small, looked up stunned, and all of them showed an incredulous look on their faces. They also heard the sound of the Tao trembling. I also sensed that terrifying aura swept over. In addition to deep shock. Even forget any other emotions. Moreover, Daoyin trembled, unheard of. Even in the primeval era hundreds of millions of years ago, no one had ever been able to cause Daoyin to tremble. This is an extremely terrifying gesture. Qiankuan Holy Land. A decadent old man climbed out of the lid of the coffin, looked in the direction of the Taishan Dao sect from a distance, trembled all over, and the corners of his mouth twitched violently. It is worthy of being a hidden worldly sect. What a lot of talents. The Qiankuan Saint Lord below was too frightened to say more. As early as 1,000,000 years ago, when the Taishan Dao sect was still a holy land, the Qiankuan Holy Land did not know where it was. Now, hidden world. Especially today, a transcendent Tianjiao that triggered the 10 trembling of Daoyin appeared, and this hidden world sect was even more arrogant. It made Qiankuan old ancestor's heart tremble wildly, and his back was cold. At the same time that the ancestor of Qiankuan was terrified, the netherworld, Holy Land of the Host Domain, the Yin and Yang Holy Land of the Host Domain, the Streamer Holy Land of the Host Domain, the Tianke Holy Land of the Host Domain, and the Holy Ground of the Host Domain Dao, the Holy Lord, and all the high-level people were standing on the top of the mountain, looking at the Taishan Dao sect from afar, only feeling a tremor in their hearts, and an extreme sense of unreality surged up. Daoyin 10 trembling. OMG, this. Is it still human? And thousands of miles away, in a hidden world. Golden Wing Duping ancient clan. This is the descendant of the bloodline of the ancient race handed down from the Middle Ages. The masters in the clan are like clouds, and the power is everywhere. Some of the children of the clan start from the martial god realm. And even more, it is the power of the 5 realms of the martial god and the 6 realms. Martial god realm, 6 realms, martial king, martial emperor. Martial emperor, martial god, martial ancestor. Step into the martial god and be revered by the world as powerful. At this time, among the Golden Wing Duping clan, an old figure suddenly appeared in the hall, looking at the mottled city wall and the ancient family members. His face was solemn, and he instructed, if you see the people of the Taishan Dao sect in the future, either take a detour or bow your head and call Big Brother. Heard no. Heard me. Obey the orders of the ancestors. The next moment, the old figure trembled and turned into the king of the golden-winged Duping. A pair of wings covering the sky, roaring, and flying towards the sky. It's just that when he was flying, he suddenly thought of something, gasped sharply, hurriedly collected his wings, and landed on the ground to walk. He still dared to fly in the air? It's a long life. It's not just the golden-winged rock family. At the same time, Golden Ancient Clan, Red Blood Ancient Clan, Hidden Worldly Family, Ancient Royalty, Host Domain Yi Family, Host Domain Martial Family, Host Domain Ma Family, Host Domain Zhou Family. These wealthy families. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2AA54Z8B. At this moment, cold sweat was dripping, and everyone was standing on the ground, like ants looking up at the gods, looking up in the direction of the Taishan Dao sect. I feel my hands and mouth shaking. Alas! Some patriarchs sighed, greatly shocked. The other clansmen were greatly shocked, all of them were shocked, and it was really difficult to accept. The Taishan Dao sect was originally a veteran force, above all the forces in the host domain. Now, there are people with such terrifying talents again. This host domain can no longer hold the Taishan Dao sect. As for the other large and small forces in this Dao domain, they all stood on Their own hills, their hearts beating wildly, causing an uproar in their hearts, looking stunned and stunned. Tai Xian Daozong. Lin Wuwei and Elder Su finally came to their senses, looked in the direction of the water curtain cave, and ordered, "Don't disturb that Tianjiao, let him cultivate well. Wait for the tournament, this sun will definitely be born and shine. When opening up the cave sky, they can't be disturbed, they will vomit blood and go crazy, and this more terrifying Dao sound trembles, they dare not disturb, for fear of stubble." Yes. Whoosh. All peak lords nodded. Below. Except for Lihua Peak, the 8 peaks were all full of disciples of Wu Yang. All of them were shocked in their hearts, their whole bodies were trembling, and their faces changed again and again. You say, could it be the same senior brother who opened up 18 caves last time? Shoo. It's very possible. This senior brother is really extremely talented, even the sect master. It's terrible. If I run into him at the tournament, I will directly admit defeat. Me too. Water curtain cave. Phew. Absorbed the blood of Di Luo, and Suchanga let out a long breath of turbid breath. And the next moment, the emperor fell back with blood and returned with a smile, and his cultivation skyrocketed. Boom. The Divine Gang Realm is a heavy heaven. Divine Gang Realm triple heaven. Divine Gang Realm 5 heavens. Divine Gang Realm 7 heavens. Divine Gang Realm 9 heavens. Cultivation soared, and the strength skyrocketed. 90 million caddies. 100 million caddies. 150 million caddies. 200 million caddies. I have to say that the improvement brought by the blood of the great emperor is terrifying, and the physical strength has blatantly increased to a terrifying 200 million caddies. Then, Suchanga closed his eyes and calmed down. Time passed slowly, and 8 hours passed in the blink of an eye. Hu Han had already finished, and the other disciples had also left the place. After a day of cultivation. At a certain moment. You're done. Suchanga opened his eyes were shining, the power in his body vibrate, and his muscles and bones crackled, as if there was endless power inside. Immediately, he took a deep breath and returned to Lihua Peak. Late at night. The moon is dark and windy. A round of blood moon hanging high on the branches. Tiantai Peak. In the dimly lit secret room, the fire was bright, and Du Sihai and Bing Yu were plotting. 3 changes tonight, search for that master. So good. Du Sihai nodded. It didn't take long. A dead man wearing a mask of bronze fangs stood like a majestic deity, and under the cold mask there was a bloodthirsty killing intent. This is the person from the Tiantai Peak and the Hall of Law Enforcement. 2 high-ranking officials were brazenly dispatched, wearing a crown on their heads and wearing golden armor, standing here like a god of war, with an indifferent face. Whoosh. Soon. Midday on the moon. Yua Peak. 3 figures entrenched in the void, each of them looming, like an ancient mighty person lurking in the deepest part of the chaotic territory, waiting for the opportunity to wait for the opportunity, seeing the blood seal the throat. P.S. The little author is very excited, and a big guy sent a big god certification. Thank you to the big guy, Magic Dao, Hall Master Chen, for the great god certification. Thank you. Thank you so much. In addition, weekly ask, are these 3 chapters cool today? In the dark night, it was dim and dark, and I couldn't see my fingers. In the air, waves of slaughter came one after another, filled with dazzling oppression, and the atmosphere was solemn, making people feel dangerous and desperate. There is something strange. Soon, the dead man wearing the mask of bronze fangs discovered the clue. It's a brand new wooden building. The dead man clearly remembered that Luofing had no other residence except for Qingyao's residence in Qingyao in the front mountain and Suchong's residence near Qingtan in the back mountain. But now there is one more. There are ghosts. The two high-ranking officials of the law enforcement hall also reacted. Ugh. The void fluctuated, and three terrifying auras were like ancient fierce beasts opening their fangs, crossing the void, and galloping towards the wooden building. That wooden building is Ji Xingyu's residence. Just as the three of them killed over there, in the small courtyard, Yi Qingyao sensed something, his eyes were cold, and he said coldly, "What kind of person?" Boom. A vast ocean appeared behind her, the sea was blue to black, rolling up 1,000 heavy waves, with the movement of her palm, huge waves rushed into the sky, the waves roared, like a river and a sea rushing across the entire peak. The peak lord level, even the weakest peak lord, is by no means weak. The three of them are hidden in the void, silent, but with this method of big waves, you can find out. Not good. Discovered. Ripples appeared on the surface of the water, and three void, almost transparent figures floated in it. Almost instantly, Yi Qingyao came over, glanced at it, and said coldly, "Well, no wonder the apprentice said that the Tiantai Peak and the law enforcement hall. If you don't do it, get rid of her." The dead man wearing a mask of bronze fangs appeared, and a divine weapon appeared in his hand. This divine weapon was called the Yujin Trident, extremely sharp and shining with blood. The high level of the law enforcement hall also reacted quickly, throwing out a formation in their hands and sealing the entire Lihua Peak. In an instant, Luofing was isolated from the outside, and nothing happened would be known by others. Immediately afterwards, a piercing sword radiance appeared in the hands of the high level of the law enforcement hall, and a divine weapon appeared, exuding a devouring aura in the dark night. They raised their hands and pointed a finger, and a piercing sword radiance erupted in the void like a rain of swords, and the killing intent boiled in the sky. The dead man wearing a bronze fang's mask wielded the black gold trident. The void burst out and hummed, and the space collapsed, like the sound of the tiger and leopard. The three of them worked together to besiege the lord of the first peak. Sting. Boom. In the dark night, the aura of terror was pervasive, and the sky dome in the distance was collapsing. The dead man wearing the bronze fang's mask is not an ordinary dead man, but Du Sihai's Tianjiao cultivated with all his strength, and the two high-ranking officials of the law enforcement hall are all ruthless, and the three are all martial god realm powers, and they are notoriously ruthless, eating people without spitting out bones. With the combined force of the three, a wave of murderous violence erupted, and the murderous machine fell from the sky and shot out. Good. It seems that Tiantai Peak and Law Enforcement Hall are incompatible with my Lihua Peak. Yi Qingyao took a deep breath, facing the amazing momentum of the three people. Bursting out, a golden divine sword appeared in her hand. This divine sword also belongs to the category of divine weapons. She raised her hand and waved it and cut out a sword. Buzz. The divine weapon hummed, like the momentum of shattering the heavens and the earth. The divine power roared, and the cultivation belonging to the Sendai realm broke out in full force. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. Above the martial god is Sendai. Boom! Tao Tao's divine power surged, like a river of stars, the brilliant mighty power rushed, and the sword light instantly smashed the original sword rain, tearing it to pieces, and slashing and collapsing. In the silent night, there was a shrill sound of gold and iron clashing. In the blink of an eye, the attack of the three was swept away. Ugh! Yi Qingyao's eyes were ruthless, and with a wave of his palm, he cut out a sword again. A brilliant to the extreme, sharp to the extreme, terrifying to the extreme sword radiance roared out, like 1,000 sword light, slashing through inch by inch, dividing the void into two halves. Humph! Do you think that if we dare to kill us, we are not fully prepared? The high level of the law enforcement hall sneered, his heart moved, and there was a buzz around him. Buzz. A quaint bronze mirror emerges. Vicissitudes, quaint. But it circulates with a vast breath, like a spiritual treasure in the Middle Ages, and like a Taoist weapon in the ancient era. The bronze mirror rotated, buzzed, rose in the face of the storm, and in an instant soared to the size of 10,000 zhang, like a heavenly graben, standing in front of the three people. Buzz. The sword light cut into the bronze mirror, but it disappeared like a mud cow into the sea, like a stone sinking into the sea, without any explosion. Fluctuations. Taoist. Yi Qingyao's eyes froze. Immediately after, a strange brilliant divine light appeared inside the bronze mirror, which seemed to be brewing with terrifying divine power, ready to erupt with an earth-shattering blow at any time. Far away, Yi Qingyao saw that the sword light he had just now was absorbed and devoured. The bronze mirror brewed divine power, the power sword dozens of times, and the next moment it was violently released, and the sword light was like a dragon coming to the world, shattering the void. Sting. The sword light roared, slashing like a judgment. Ugh! Yi Qingyao reacted quickly and hurriedly retreated backwards, but the power of that sword light skyrocketed under the cultivation of the Dao weapon, and the electric flint slashed over, almost unable to dodge. Oops! I didn't expect that Yi Qingyao, would be today. The all-out blow she swung using the divine weapon has now been magnified dozens of times. Who can withstand this? Ugh! At this moment, a white light flashed, like a shooting star in the night sky, which seemed to be able to illuminate the night and illuminate the sky. A figure dressed in white appeared in front of her. Yi Qingyao was stunned violently, and a thick disbelief bloomed in her pupils. Boom! Click! The sword light slashed fiercely on this white-cloaked figure, and suddenly sparks splashed, dazzling Mars dazzled the entire night sky, like a big sword slashing on steel, bursting out into a shocking iron sound. The sword light collapsed and dissipated in less than half a moment, but the white-clothed figure was intact. Yi Qingyao looked at the white-clothed figure blocking in front of him in a daze, and his body stiffened. Don't be afraid, there you have me. This white-cloaked figure is in the wind, and the words spoken are so free, so exciting, giving people a strong sense of security. He wears a white mask on his face, which is unrecognizable. Shoo! Suddenly, the pupils of the three people in the law enforcement hall shrank sharply, and they gasped in unison. What kind of flesh is this? It can carry such a blow. This? Could it be that he is the master? Yes. It's really effortless, kill. Although the three were shocked, they quickly turned their minds. The dead man wearing the bronze fang's mask took the lead in striking, and the dark gold trident pierced the space, leaving a brilliant crack in the void, as if the mighty flying in the void left a brilliant divine light, murderous, reflecting the void. The firmament tore apart in an instant. A huge abyss crack was pierced. The high level of the law enforcement hall is not a good stubble. With a wave of his arm, a bloody battle axe appeared in his hand. In the early years, he used this battle axe to slaughter an entire holy place, and now the axe was cut out, the void was collapsing, and the axe light was more dazzling than lightning. Another high-ranking member of the law enforcement hall also reacted quickly, shouting loudly, and his body crackled like thunder, as if thousands of troops were collapsing, wielding a golden war halberd, roaring and stabbing it. The war halberd slashed through, blooming and incomparably brilliant. Divine brilliance, this halberd almost made the heavens and the earth pale. And the void was dimmed. This is the killing technique of the law enforcement hall. No one can escape under this halberd. Terrible. Strong. Very strong. Even I feel palpitations. Yi Qingyao's eyes were solemn and his pupils contracted, and he could clearly sense the unparalleled aura of death rushing from under this halberd. As a hall of law enforcement, anyone who walked out was the existence of the slaughter holy land, and this halberd alone was enough to prove how powerful it was. This is a three-person joint kill. The mighty Sendai will die. Drink. The white-cloaked figure is Su Chang'e. In the face of the combined efforts of these three people, the white clothes on his body suddenly transformed, blooming with brilliant divine brilliance, turning into purple gold armor, blocking Yi Qingyao's body like an undefeated god of war standing, endless Tao. Rhyme rule order blooming on the surface of the armor, gorgeous lead, like a chain of the avenue lingering around, mysterious light, beautiful. Look up. Look at the three people who burst into divine power. A flash of pity flashed in his eyes, his waist pole was straight, his spine was like a dragon bone propped up, and he said lightly to Yi Qingyao behind him, "Stand behind me, I will protect you." Yi Qingyao was at a loss, and when he came back to his senses, he realized that a warm current crossed his heart. This was the third time he was saved. And in an instant, he saw the white-cloaked figure in front of him raise his head. The straight-waist pole stood up as if supporting the sky, like a majestic god standing in front of him, and suddenly it was the god-king of the primeval era who stepped through the chains of time and space and ascended to the world. In short, under this figure, her innate feeling of emotion and security swept through her heart, and she couldn't control her emotions, and tears slipped silently. Well, the three people of the law enforcement hall also saw that the white-cloaked figure did not change color under the killing of the three people, and even closed his eyes. His waist pole was straight, as if he wanted to carry the blow of these three people joining forces to kill. His eyelids couldn't help but jump, and then burst into a sneer. Can he take this blow? Grandpa with your last name? Before they could return to their senses, they saw the white-cloaked figure open his eyes, and at this moment, it was like an earth-shattering god revived, like the awakening of the primeval god-king. The straight-waist rod seems to be holding up the sky. Sharp eyes streaked through the ages, blooming like a holy radiance. The rolling killing intent streaked through like a tornado. That was the emperor's breath, the emperor's blood sublimated Su Chang'e's root bone, and all the bones in the body transformed into emperor bones, together with the saint's flesh body and 200 million gene of huge force. All burst out, looking at the rapidly stabbing Yujin trident. A little fingertips. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. Oh. The trident bursts open, and sparks burst into brilliant fireworks. Take a step. Look at the bloody tomahawk. One finger sweeps. Oh. The tomahawk exploded silently and turned into nothingness. Looking at the golden halberd that split down, it was still a finger. Collapsed. Yi Qingyao looked at this scene in shock, her heart jumping in her body, almost popping out of her throat. What a terrifying force this is, to destroy the desperate killing under the joint efforts of the three people. And those three people, the smiles on their faces gradually froze, looking at all this sluggishly, as if looking at a monster. What kind of flesh is this? And they easily exploded the killing moves of themselves and others. Is this sanctification of the flesh? Shoo. Also at the moment of realizing all this, the eyelids suddenly jumped, the pupils began to shrink violently. The Hall of Law Enforcement was very important in the sect, and it was even more powerful in the outside world. What winds and waves had never been seen, but today it broke the halberd and sank into the sand, and the terrifying physical saint could burst them with strength alone. Suddenly, the three were afraid. For the first time in my life, I felt fear. Himself. How dare you provoke him? Peak. Peak Lord, the high level of the law enforcement hall turned his head with difficulty. Looking at Tiantai Peak, and a trace of resentment and regret flashed in his eyes. God, why did you send us? The other two also turned their heads in unison, looking at Tiantai Peak and the law enforcement hall, with no emotions in their eyes except repentance and pity. The figure below was restored to white, his clothes fluttered in the wind, and the figure fluttered like a scholar, but it bloomed with dazzling brilliance. Dazzling like a god, and the white road rhyme adding mottled color to this scene. Step. Suchanga took a step. Suddenly, the scalp of the upper level of the law enforcement hall was numb. The brain case was about to explode, and the pupils contracted violently. Almost shockingly, the physical saint walked towards him step by step. The pace was not fast, but it was like trampling on his heart. Boom! In an instant, a white shadow flashed in front of him, and a fist smashed into his face like a meteorite. Oh! The flesh was like a meteorite running over the high level of the law enforcement hall could not dodge. The head exploded, and the body turned into blood-colored fireworks, splashing towards the ground. Immediately after. Oh! There is one less person in heaven and earth. Then, looking at the remaining dead warriors wearing Bronze Fang's masks, the same fancy punch was thrown. The dead man wearing the Bronze Fang's mask was shocked in his heart, but he also resisted desperately, and an ancient mirror suddenly appeared in front of him, imitating the bronze Dao weapon, but the mirror was punched in front of the physical saint, without even holding on for a quarter of an hour. Oh! The fist penetrated the ancient mirror, and the 200 million pounds of huge force mercilessly slammed on the head of the dead man, and he suddenly felt that his eyes were bursting with Venus, his head was dizzy, and his flesh exploded on the spot, exploding into a blood mist. 3 people, group annihilation. There are no bones left. The 3 storage rings fell to the ground, emitting a silver-white glow, as if they were made of moonstone, shining and shining. Suchanga picked them up and put them in his pocket. The dead man wearing the mask of Bronze Fangs knew at a glance that he was the best among the dead soldiers, with a noble status, and the storage ring must be full of treasures. As for the 2 high-ranking officials of the law enforcement hall, there is no need to say more. Then, with a wave of his hand, he also collected the bronze mirror. This weapon can rebound and attack, but it is a big treasure, he must not miss it. With all this done, he was ready to leave. You. Who is it? Suddenly, a voice sounded. Suchanga turned around, it was the beautiful master. Under the mask, he smiled heartily, changed his voice slightly, and said, "A person you are familiar with." Immediately, his figure walked beside Yi Qingyao, walked towards the depths of Lihua Peak, and finally disappeared. Watching him pass by step, Yi Qingyao was short of breath and wanted to open her mouth to ask, but she never had the courage to say it. Familiar people, who is it? Could it be apprentices? No, something is wrong with the sound. Someone I know well. Who could it be? Ji Xingyu was awakened by a sound of fighting in his sleep. But when she came out, the battle had ended, and she saw a white-clothed figure walking beside Shirzun in the distance, stepping into the depths of Lihua Peak, and finally disappeared. Her bright eyes flashed, a little puzzled. Suchanga quickly returned to the cabin. Gongzi, Su. Lianyue greeted her, her beautiful eyes surging, like the visions of heaven and earth, beautiful. She had just witnessed everything, and in addition to being shocked, it was a deep joy. Gongzi is so good. Suchanga said with a smile, "Okay, it's not early, when you have time, I'll take you out to travel through the vicissitudes of the land, now go to sleep. First." While speaking, Su Xianyue's cheeks blushed slightly. Tiantai Peak. Inside the chamber. Under the dim candlelight, there was a serious and murderous aura on the face. The air was solemn, and the cold killing intent was faintly rushing. They fell. This time, Du Sihai was surprisingly calm, without the slightest anger. He had a soul lamp in his hand, which had now been extinguished. Even if he couldn't sense any battle fluctuations in Luofing, this soul lamp couldn't fake it. The lights went out, and 3 more living lives were killed by that master. How is this dead again? A flash of disbelief flashed in Bingyo's pupils. But the next moment she didn't smile angrily and said, "Okay, it's really against the sky, even the people of the law enforcement hall dare to kill." Du Sihai coughed and said in a deep voice, "Why, listening to what you mean. Are you looking for the sect master, to beat them upside down?" Bing. You nodded and said hatefully, "So far, no one has dared to touch the people of the law enforcement hall, shouldn't they report them?" Du Sihai shook his head, "That master hides meticulously. If you go to the sect master, then it is estimated that Luofing is fine, but we will be investigated by the sect master." Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2AA54Z8B. Lihua Peak has always given the impression of the weakest peak. After all, it is the bottom of the 9 peaks, and the only disciple cannot cultivate. If you go to report them, the sect master will not believe it, but will set himself on fire. Unless you find out that master, but you see, did our 2 peaks join forces this time to find him? Bingyu chuckled in her heart. So what do we do? Is it only possible to eat this deflated? Du Sihai gave her a blank look and said, "How many deflated have I eaten?" Bing. You was speechless. Tiantai Peak doesn't know how many masters have fallen. It can be called a great injury to the vitality, but he can't find the sect master to seek justice. And now, she also sent someone to kill Luofing, if she went to find the sect master. I am afraid that Lin Invincible will find out, and in the end all the spearheads will point to her, and the consequences, needless to say, must be worrying. For a while, she held her breath in her heart, filled her chest with anger, and was as uncomfortable as eating a fly. Let's wait until my brother comes back from the Cloud Dome. Du Sihai intends to avoid the limelight. 2nd Day. In the early morning, a fiery red sun rises from the east. In the hut, Su Lianyue had not yet woken up, and Su Chang'e had already woken up early. System prompt: Su Lianyue's cultivation is +1, +1, +1, +1, +1, +1, +1, +1, since Su Lianyue successfully opened the cave sky, her cultivation has resumed its automatic growth, and it must not be long before she can step into the next realm. This kind of talent for cultivation while lying down made Su Chang'e's heart tingle. Mercier's strength has grown, just like his growth, how can he not be happy? I have to say, Lear is so good to feed, usually you don't have to care. He smiled heartily, opened the window, took a breath of fresh air, and then opened the 3 storage rings from last night. In the first ring, there were more than 600,000 top-grade spirit stones shining at a glance, in addition to a prefecture-level exercise, 9. Tribulation's rotation skill, there were several other elixir spirit fruits. In addition to the white flower spirit stone, in the second ring, there was also a brilliant and crystal clear thing. This is sword embryo. Su Chang'e's eyes lit up. This object is about 3 feet long, 2 fingers wide, and the whole body is silver, and the Dao sword sound trembles above its body, and the sharp sword intent flows, brilliant to the extreme, accompanied by the flow of the Dao rhyme law. This sword embryo is not a sword, only a semi-finished sword, although it has not yet been forged into a complete sword weapon, but the fierce killing aura contained inside can no longer be concealed. Although Su Chang'e didn't know what grade of sword embryo this was, he could see at a glance that this thing was definitely not an ordinary sword embryo. I really didn't expect that I could harvest this kind of treasure. Next, he opens the third ring. Inside the ring, the 5-color light is overflowing, and there are all kinds of rare gemstones, including moonstone, sunstone, radiant stone, stellophimine. All kinds and everything. These gems are gems that increase the power of weapons, and once they are set in weapons, the power of weapons will immediately soar. Finally, he began to ponder the bronze mirror. Since the bronze mirror was retracted, it has only changed the size of a palm. And no human face can be reflected in the mirror, only a layer of white clouds and mist. This is a treasure. A flash of joy flashed in Su Chang'e's eyes. This thing is a Dao weapon, which can absorb damage and then bounce back several times, which is a true treasure. Immediately, he walked out with his feet up, ready to give this object to the beautiful master. It didn't take long for him to arrive at the small courtyard. Pushing open the door, I saw Yu Qingyao standing in the courtyard, looking at his residence from a distance, his eyebrows frowning slightly, thoughtful. P.S. The background saw that yesterday, there was another reader boss who rewarded a big god certification, thank you. Thank you to the big guy, Rain Emperor, for sending the big god certification. A certification of 128 yuan, the big guy's legs are so thick, the humble author is very excited, but more is moved, thank you very much, really really. Thank you. Finally, there is a question, which is better to drink Pepsi or Coca-Cola? Master is looking at my residence, is he guessing something? Su Chang'e whispered in his heart. In his hand, he still held a grain of sand, it was the Dark Soul Emperor. On the way here just now, he had already awakened the Dark Soul Emperor. Young man, you're done, the Dark Soul Emperor silently erased the fate line on the bronze mirror, and then lacked spiritual power and fell into a deep sleep again. As for the appearance of the mirror, it has not changed. Once a mirror is broken, it can never be restored. And Su Chang'e came here, naturally not a gift from Jingda Guangguang, but was ready to quietly put this object down and let the beautiful master pick it up herself. After all, he got this mirror in his hand last night, and now he gave it to her, and the beautiful master Bing Shui is smart, and she will definitely detect the clue. Ugh. Su Changzinger's wrist shook, and the mirror flew silently to the corner of the small courtyard, and finally fell into the grass in the corner of the wall. After doing this, he stepped forward and took Yi Qingyao into his arms, saying, "Master, what do you see?" Yi Qingyao returned to her senses, shook her head and smiled bitterly. "It's nothing, I just think that there is someone who is very similar to you." Her heart fluttered. At the critical moment last night, it was the white-clothed figure that held up the sky for her. She didn't know who the white-clothed figure was, but subconsciously, she always felt very similar to the apprentice, and the person said that it was someone she was very familiar with, which made her cranky and stunned. Su Chang'e heard the meaning of her words, and he didn't reply, but smiled. "Master, in fact, that person is me." Shaking his head, he dispersed this sentence in his heart, if it was exposed now, then at the tournament, he would not be able to surprise the master. "By the way, apprentice, in fact, during this time, I have always had a question in my heart, but every time you go too fast, I don't have time to ask." Yi Qingyao suddenly thought of something. Lu frowned, and said. Su Chang'e nodded. "Master, please ask." Yi Qingyao's beautiful eyes looked directly at him, and asked in a deep voice. "I remember that you have been unknown for the past 4 years, but during this time, why did you always give me treasures 5 times? And those treasures are diverse, and there are even hundreds of millions of spirit stones." Su Chang'e smiled and said, "As I said earlier, I have repeatedly gained opportunities during this time, and I will naturally come to repay Master Venerable." Speaking of this, he raised his right hand, stroked his palm on Yi Qingyao's pink and flawless wrist, and said, "If it weren't for holding your thigh, I wouldn't be able to survive these 4 years as a mortal." The skin collided, and where he started, Su Chang'e only felt that the hand felt delicate and silky, as if he was stroking beautiful jade. What he said is also the truth. The fantasy world is weak and strong. If it were not for holding the thigh of the beautiful master and eating soft rice, he would not be able to survive at all. Yi Qingyao's cheeks suddenly turned red, her heart touched, and she said softly, "Your hands seem to be a little cold, I'll warm you up." Su Chang'e smiled slightly and said, "Master, you are so good." Good meat hemp. Yi Qingyao's fair and flawless face was pink and blooming like a budding flower, and it was red, beautiful. Saying that, she stretched out her palm and attached it to Su Chang'e's right palm, tightly attached to that palm, and the blush on her pretty face became even more crimson, like a pink peach blossom blooming, shy and moving. As for the matter of chance, she did not pursue it further. The word chance is enough to explain everything. In the vast and boundless fantasy world, there are countless opportunities. And each cultivator has his own opportunity in the underworld, depending on whether the cultivator can seize it. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. It is worth mentioning that chance is divided into big chance and small chance. The small one is just the icing on the cake, and the large one is enough to make the monk change his life against the sky, and since then the green clouds have soared into the sky. Yi Qingyao also has many opportunities from time to time. There are big and small, and one time there is a big one, which directly makes her break through several big realms in a row, which is very terrifying. At the moment, her white and crystal pretty face was flushed, and she looked up at Su Chang'e, and there was a colorful emotion in her eyes, with affection. You know, even if you have the deepest relatives, it is impossible to give your own opportunity to the other party. But what about the apprentices? He gave his chance to himself without reservation, which it is to put yourself in the most important position in your heart. By the way, there is one more thing. She suddenly remembered something again and asked, a transcendent Tianjiao, who caused the Daoyin 10 trembling, appeared in the sect. Do you have any feelings? Suchanga smiled and said, the apprentice feels that there is no one in the world, no one can compare. If he grows up in the future, he will be eternal. And the young history will leave a name, and the apprentice still thinks that he must be a handsome person with me. Gotta change the way to boast about yourself. Yi Qingyao smiled, and the little powder fist struck on his chest, and said, with a smile, when did you learn to put gold on your face? Suchanga pouted, and slandered in his heart, I didn't put gold. Yi Qingyao didn't care, took her hand away from Suchanga's palm, and then stretched out her pink arms, hugged Suchanga's waist, and hugged him tightly. At this moment, there was a sudden knock outside the door. Knock knock. Immediately after, Ji Xingyu's voice came, Master, are you up? Yi Qingyao hurriedly let go of her hand, coughed dryly, and said, is there something wrong? Ji Xingyu said, the exercises you gave to your disciple yesterday, the disciple can't understand some places, so I specially invite you. Yi Qingyao took a long breath. Suchanga said, Master, then I will leave first. Yi Qingyao's cheeks were red, and there was still a faint, a little reluctant, and felt lost in her heart. Suchanga didn't stay long and got up to leave. Almost forgot, this brand is yours, take it. Yi Qingyao suddenly took out a brand from his arms and handed it to him. Suchanga fixed his eyes and looked at it. It turned out to be his identity brand. Okay, then I'll go. He took the sign and immediately got up to leave. Just as Suchanga left, Yi Qingyao's eyes suddenly moved and she noticed something. In the corner of the wall, something seemed to be reflecting light. She raised her hand and took the thing through the air. Looking down, it turned out to be a bronze mirror. Well, this wasn't last night. She recognized it at once, and a flash of surprise flashed in her eyes. Wasn't this mirror taken by that white-cloaked figure? Why is it here for me? On the other side, Suchanga went out and turned his head to see Ji Xinyu. I've seen Ingong. Ji Xinyu bent down to salute. She was very grateful in her heart for treating this senior brother who saved her brother and led her to worship the Tai Shan Dao sect. You're welcome, cultivate well. Suchanga waved his hand and got up to leave. Ji Xingyu came to find the beautiful master, but it had nothing to do with him. Immediately, he walked towards his cabin. Not yet to the place, the system subsidy arrived as promised. Ding! You sent a Shan-level Daoist bronze mirror, and the tens of billions of subsidies took effect, triggering an excess critical attack. This excess crit multiplier, 516,000 times. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Taichu Yinyang Mirror. Primeval Yinyang Mirror? Suchanga's heart moved. Looks like a treasure, huh? The next moment, the system sound sounded. Primordial Yinyang Mirror, a heaven-level Dao instrument that can absorb all damage, accumulate and cultivate it, just waiting to release a brilliant blow. When released, the power can skyrocket 1,000 times, bursting out with earth-shaking destructive power. Oh? Suchanga's eyebrows raised. Daoist grade. Heaven, earth, Xian, yellow. Yellow is the second, the sky is the highest. At the moment when he listened to the system prompt, Suchanga suddenly understood. Isn't that equivalent to charging? Charge the Dao instrument, constantly charge the energy contained inside the Dao instrument rolls more and more like a snowball, and the last move is released. The destructive power is not too strong. At this time, the system sound sounded again. System tip, currently charged energy, 0/10,000. Conversion unit, energy value. What? 10,000 energy points? Suchanga was overjoyed in his heart and suddenly realized. That bronze mirror last night, it seems, can only absorb one attack, and then must be released. But this primordial yin-yang mirror can absorb 10,000 times. The upper limit is so high. Under the upper limit of such a terrifying level, the absorbed energy continues to accumulate, and when it is released, it is obedient and terrifying. Good, this thing is really good. It looks like I'm going to charge this treasure. Suchanga's face was full of red light. Once the energy of this object is filled, when the tournament comes, it will be a big help for yourself. As for how to charge, this is very simple. Directly find a demon beast lair. The more demon beasts, the better, the stronger the better. Directly absorb the damage they burst. Over, isn't this beautiful? It seems that I have to go down the mountain, there. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. Are no demon beast lairs in the sect, so I can only go down the mountain to collect it. But this time, Suchanga planned to bring Su Lianyue with her, lest she wait hard and worry about it. Every time he went out, Mercy was looking forward to it, lonely. This is heartbreaking for a girl who desperately needs warmth. Just do it. Suchanga quickened his pace and walked towards the hut. It didn't take long to successfully arrive at the door. Pushing open the door, Su Lianyue was still sleeping. Her small mouth was rosy, and she kept muttering in her mouth, Gongzi. It can be seen that she seems to dream of herself. Suchanga sat down at the end of the bed and waited quietly. About half an hour later, Su Lianyue slowly woke up. She opened her eyes and saw Suchanga at a glance. Gongzi, her heart was warm, and a sense of security welled up in her heart. How she wanted to open her eyes every day and see Gongzi at first sight, and now, she felt a warmth rush to her heart and poured into the depths of her heart. If only it were like this every day from now on, she fantasized in her heart. Suchanga spoke, Mercy, get up, I'll take you down the mountain together. Su Lianyue subconsciously asked, where to go? Go and find some places where there are many demon beasts. Suchanga just said this, and suddenly found that Lianer only cared about asking rhetorically, and did not mean to get up. He smiled, and said, hurry up. Don't get up again to spank. Ah, right away. Su Lianyue hurriedly got up from the bed. Today, Suchanga wants to take her out, and she is very happy in her heart. Because since coming here, Suchanga has only taken her out once, and that time is to Tianhe City. Since then, no matter what Suchanga did, he never took her with him again. And kept it at home. This made her feel that she was not beautiful enough to embarrass Gongzi. Fortunately, today I finally waited again. Let's go. Suchanga pinched her cheeks. Su Lianyue lowered her head. Soon, the two walked out of the cabin and headed for the outside world. It's just that at this time, Suchanga suddenly had a flash of inspiration. And thought of something. Although it is said that he is going out to absorb damage and charge the Tao instrument, if he can cut off the opportunity and improve his cultivation, then isn't it a win-win? It was also a coincidence. At this moment, two figures suddenly rose up from the Tiantai Peak, and the imperial sword flew and quickly fled towards the distance. Suchanga recognized it. It was a miscellaneous disciple of Tiantai Peak. named Zhao Wuya. The other figure was an old man wearing a Taoist robe, which was the guardian of the sect. In the sect, whenever a disciple rushes to the outside world, he can apply for a guardian to follow him and protect his own safety. If you are confident in your own strength, you can also not apply. At the moment, Zhao Wuya and the Tao protector were swift and in a hurry, as if there was something urgent. Suchong's eyes froze, and he noticed something strange. Let the Soul Emperor see. Half a spirit stone appeared in his hand, and the Dark Soul Emperor soon appeared in the form of a grain of sand. Senior, those two are in a hurry, there must be something, you hurry up and help see. Hearing this, the Dark Soul Emperor glanced at Zhao Wuya from afar, and his face suddenly turned overjoyed. Quickly follow him. Suchong's heart moved, and he hurriedly took Su Lianyue's imperial sword to rise, secretly following. Along the way, the Dark Soul Emperor explained, Zhao Wuya just received a task in the mission hall, and that task was a distress letter from the Daoi Holy Land. The content of that letter is very simple. It says that the Tao One Holy Land has discovered a mid-grade spiritual vein in the Swallowing Cloud Mountain range, but when the Tao One Holy Land was about to be mined, the Red Blood ancient clan suddenly appeared, saying that this spiritual vein was discovered by them first. So the two sides fought a lot, and to the end, it was still not resolved. The letter also said that the Red Blood ancient clan has a deep heritage. There are many strong people, they are invincible to a holy land, and many disciples have fallen, and the situation is extremely miserable. Therefore, I hope that the Taishan Dao sect can come forward, that is, spend money to find someone. This letter was sent to the sect by a big eagle, and then hung in the mission hall, and then picked up by Zhao Wuya. Zhao Wuya rushed to the Tao One Holy Land, and solved the friction between the two sides without much effort, and the Tao One Holy Lord was very grateful and gave a reward, 10 Directions Town Prison Sutra. And the Red Blood ancient clan did not dare to offend the Taishan Dao sect. And in order to apologize, he presented Zhao Wuya with an extremely rare treasure, Red Blood relic. Do you know what the 10 Directions Town Prison Sutra is? This is a very ancient secret art, originating from an immortal king peak powerhouse in ancient times. That immortal king worked hard to create this technique. Once cultivated, 9981 purgatory will appear in the body, and you can catch other people's divine souls into it, refine it, and transform it into your own power, which is extremely terrifying. And that red-blooded relic son, I heard that it was a relic formed by the sitting and incarnation of a Buddha in the flesh, and it was later obtained by the red-blooded ancient clan, and it was fed day and night with the blood of the clan, and the internal energy has already skyrocketed many times. If it is absorbed, I don't know what a terrifying physique it will transform. My rough guess is that it should transform into the supreme body of the Buddha. Gate. These two things you must cut off your beard, the improvement for you is huge. Speaking of this, the Dark Soul Emperor suddenly remembered something, frowned, and said, Hey, I remember that relic seems to have been stolen from the Red Blood ancient clan in the Middle Ages, but how can it reappear now? He hurriedly pinched his fingers. After a while, the Dark Soul Emperor's face changed drastically, and his heart was shocked, and he changed his words, Don't go. There is fraud. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure suddenly dimmed countless times. His spiritual power was exhausted, and he was about to fall into a deep sleep. He was very unwilling, and opened his mouth to remind Suchonga, but he couldn't speak. Soon, his spiritual power was completely exhausted, and he fell into a deep Sleep, motionless. Fraudulent? Suchanga raised his eyebrows, puzzled. But don't really care. These two things are so terrifying, then the use of subsidies will definitely brush even more terrifying treasures. So, how can you not go? Are you kidding? These two treasures must be in hand. He took Su Xianyue's hand and said, go. Although Zhao Wuya is a miscellaneous disciple, the Tao protector beside him is extremely advanced in cultivation, and he is far faster than Suchanga. Soon, they arrived at the holy land of Tao. At this time it was already dusk, and Zhao Wuya looked around, only to see that the Taoy holy land was a majestic immortal mountain, surrounded by a thick fog. This dense fog is different from the dense fog elsewhere, it is pure black fog, pitch black, making people feel a chill rushing to their faces, and they can't help but shiver. Zhao Wuya didn't care, and stepped straight into the Tao One holy land. As soon as he arrived at the mountain gate, before he entered, a middle-aged man immediately led a large number of people and horses to come, with a smile on his face, and said respectfully, the junior Tao One holy lord, I have seen the senior. Zhao Wuya was overjoyed. He is just a miscellaneous servant, but he is a miscellaneous servant of the Tai Shan Dao sect, and now that he is out, what about the Holy Lord level? Don't you have to obediently lower your head and call out seniors? For a time, he shouted in his heart, his chest was high, and he was quite energetic and proud. The seniors are coming, the younger ones are far away, and please speak in the hall. The first Saint Lord of Tao was very polite and asked Zhao Wuya to enter with a smile on his face. The guardian beside Zhao Wuya handed over his hand, you're welcome. Wherever, please come in quickly. The first Holy Lord hurriedly surrendered. Read more novels for free on our website, tinyurl.com/2aa54z8b. Not long after, the Great Hall of the First Holy Land. It is extremely high-spec, luxurious, and magnificent. Taoy Holy Lord bent over and lowered his head, personally served Zhao Wuya to the first seat, nodded and bowed, and said respectfully, Senior, please sit. This seat is made of gold, inlaid with countless amethyst gemstones, and emits a treasure light, and at a glance, you can tell that it is not an ordinary seat, but the throne of the Holy Lord. Give me the throne of the Lord? Zhao Wuya was really shocked by his identity. In the sect, he was called as a servant every day, like a dog, he had no dignity, and now he finally raised his eyebrows. That's how you should be. Thinking like this, he shouted in his heart, and immediately the big horse Golden Knife sat up, holding Erlang's legs, his right hand touched the armrest of the throne, and a finger gently tapped on it. Boom. 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 The fingers tapped on the throne, making a burst of sounds. No one dared to speak, and the Tao One Holy Lord and everyone in the Tao One Holy Land looked up respectfully below. This feeling made Zhao Wuya's heart feel numb. Your affairs, this seat has heard about it, you can rest assured, this seat will help you settle out. Zhao Wuya raised his head high and directly changed his title. This horse's life. He was so happy that he almost cried. Thank you, Senior. The seniors are out of the horse, and the problems encountered by the younger generations are just drizzle. The first Holy Lord of the Tao lowered his noble head and bent down to salute. Then he personally brewed a cup of fragrant tea and delivered it to Zhao Wuya, respectfully saying, Senior, please use tea. Zhao Wuya took the tea and took a sip, then looked around, his eyes were bulging, his eyes were full of greed and longing, and he said in a deep voice, What about the maid? Why didn't a white-skinned and beautiful maid come up? To one? Yes, it is the junior who is negligent, and the junior is on it. The first Holy Lord obeyed all his requests. At this time outside, Suchanga successfully arrived after a day's rush. Looking around, I saw that the black fog was pervasive here, as if shrouded in magic fog, filled with an unusual aura. Su Lianyue looked at this thick black fog, and suddenly her eyelids wrinkled. In her spirit, she sensed that this place was very abnormal, but she couldn't say what was not normal. Suchanga did not waste time and went straight into the Dao One Holy Land Hall. In the main hall, the Dao First Holy Lord saw that someone was coming. Uninvited, raised his eyebrows, and said coldly, "Who are you?" Suchanga directly showed his identity token and said, Tai Xian Dao Sex. Lihua Peak Master, close disciple. With the relationship between him and Yi Qingyao, he is naturally a closed disciple, and it is the kind that can no longer be closed. Boom. The corner of the Dao One Holy Lord's mouth twitched fiercely, his heart trembled twice in his body, and he hurriedly said, "The junior has eyes that do not recognize Mount Tai, and he still hopes to forgive sins." Speaking of this, he slapped out violently, directly towards the Holy Lord's throne. And Zhao Wuya suddenly felt that the hurricane in front of him roared like a wave, and the scream of awe was directly overturned by this palm. Then, the Dao First Saint Lord bent down and respectfully said to Suchanga, "Senior, please take a seat." Zhao Wuya? This is seeing a more awesome person, and directly leaving him alone? P.S. Usually overuse the brain, resulting in a very uncomfortable body, so. Yesterday took a day off, sorry everyone. I want to ask here, do you know which brand of calming brain fluid is good?